Good morning. How are you guys? It is Saturday. It's just me and some coffee. But I was not expecting this at all. If you don't know, I am an avid reader. I read quite a bit, I read a lot. And one of the books that I read and unexpectedly enjoyed was Fourth Wing, which is kind of a romantasy dragon. It's got its flaws, but for me, I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting. And the sequel, Iron Flame, is coming out in November. It literally just came out, what was it, 4 days ago. And I put it on hold in my library. I wasn't going to buy it. I didn't like the books that much. And hardcovers are so expensive nowadays. But my library let me know my turn to check it out. So I kind of want to do a little reading vlog and kind of document that process. And I'm not sure how I ended up getting this lucky because it's like, I don't know if maybe that's a bad thing. I didn't put it on hold that long ago and I'm already got a copy. Like, is this book bad? Is there something I don't know? If you do not know anything about Fourth Wing and Iron Flame is the second book in the Imperium series by Rebecca Yarros, and it's the sequel to Fourth Wing. It's a romantasy dragon book that has had BookTok in an absolute chokehold, but me too, bestie, me too. I do plan on keeping this vlog spoiler free for Iron Flame, so if you have not had the chance to read it, like, no worries there. You will get some of my reactions and stuff like that, but I'm not going to say anything about the plot and like what actually happens. There most probably are going to be some spoilers for the first book, Fourth Wing. I'll try to keep the major ones to a minimum, but you've kind of been warned. At this point, you can continue on in your own peril. But I do actually keep a book journal where I kind of note everything. I might put stickers on here. I'm a sticker girly. I wanted to dress it up. This is my little notes from Fourth Wing. I didn't really take a lot. It looks like I did the audiobook and I finished it August 12th. Yeah, it was a good time. It was not great. Great. I can't spell apparently. I really like a lot of the things about it, and I think it's just like dragons. Like, you can never go wrong with dragons in fantasy. And get started on that Iron Flame, which I'm doing both the physical and audiobook. Sometimes we are literally starting off right where it left off at Fourth Wing. So if you want answers, not necessarily that it shows everything, but we get dropped in the same point exactly where Fourth Wing left off. Politics are politicking, the strategy is strategizing, which is kind of one of my most favorite parts in a lot of fantasy. Is I really like seeing how government systems can work and function. And just finished chapter 10. We're on to chapter 11. But I think one of my favorite parts about this book in general was just how it handled a lot of, oops, this is gonna make somebody motion sick. Something basically just happened that shocked me, and like, I like being shocked in books. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I want to be shocked and surprised and taken off guard by the books I read. I'm remembering why I had so much fun in the first book. Man, am I just like other girls and I'm eating this shit up. I'm not even done with chapter 11, but like, I just wanted to mention that I just love mess. That's all I have to say. At this point, I'm kind of at the 25% mark. And I wanted to mention, I saw this on TikTok. Let me pull up the information here because this person is most probably explained a lot better and has more direct experience compared to me. But they were talking about how basically Rebecca took names from a language that she basically thought were cool and just pronounced it how she thought they were supposed to be pronounced, as opposed to like honoring the original pronunciation of those words. I'll add that here. So that is something to keep in mind, especially pronunciations. Like, that was such an easy thing for her to get right. But kind of moving on, we're kind of back in school and it's got this very college vibe to it. Lots of academics. I'm just eating up. There's something about reading, especially in the fall for me, and I don't know if it's just because that's when school starts, but I really enjoy reading academic settings in the fall time. But like, there's dragons too, so it's like so funny. I just saw everybody's TikToks about chapter 17. At the top of all these chapters, they're supposed to have like a little dragon symbol, and some of the people who pre-ordered got misprints, and they didn't get that dragon, so I literally had to stop reading. Because do you guys have book icks? Those really happened to me, and so we're about halfway through this book. Overall, there is improved world building in this one versus Fourth Wing. They have these little text excerpts before each chapter, which for each of these text excerpts, this is for chapter one, it has this other little section from. I love when novels do this. Like they add, you have like your primary literature that you're reading, but then at the same time, you're having like secondary, like first person source material, like a little expert of what the characters in your book would actually be reading. And I think it's such a good way to like inadvertently add detail and add depth and description and kind of, I also just like epistolary format in general. Gosh, I literally have to take a break. The way I audibly gasped from what I just read. Whew, I was kind of see, this is the thing that I really like about both of them. I'm just caught off guard and unexpected, and that's a lot of fun. Like I love when I can't predict what's happening in a book, because the problem is since I've read so much, I can see lots of patterns and defenses are down. I just don't know what's going on, and I'm having a ball. So I am 75% through. There have been in this last section, there have been some revelations that's really changed the way that I looked at some things that happen in the first book. Because there was a few clues where it seemed like it, one thing, it was setting up to go one way, but we've learned some new information and it was actually something totally different. But it doesn't feel as well planned as I would have liked. Because when stuff like that happens, I want to go back and I want to be able to see where, oh, I misinterpreted this, or, the main character, Violet, viewed it this way, but I can easily see how her interpretation was wrong. Or, oh, like that makes these scenes make way more sense because we view it through this light instead of that way. Maybe I am just not as obvious because I did kind of read the first one. I wasn't critically analyzing the first one when I read it. I was just reading for fun and I wasn't documenting it a bunch besides that little bit that I wrote in my reading journal. I would love, if you've read this book, I would love to chit chat about what you thought because I wonder if other people feel the same way I did. And there are a few things that I've really liked that have been done. For example, the magic system has continued to expand, which I like when it's more complicated. There's more rules. Violence, or Violence, oh my gosh, that's her pet name. Violet, the main character, clearly has a connective tissue disorder. Most people speculate that it's EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a group of rare inherited conditions that affect connective tissues. So basically, her joints are very flexible. She dislocates stuff all the time. She's worried about injury. And I really like how in the book that does take precedence. Like, she's constantly worried, this maneuver, how is it going to affect my body? What adjustments do I need to be made, etc. And that's just speculative because in this storyline, she just has this connective tissue issue. She doesn't necessarily, it's not given a name, it's not really explain more than just like she has this thing. But I just wanted to at least touch on that it seems to be very intentional. Like I didn't notice it as much in this book as the first one, but this book kind of takes place in a medieval Europe type place, and sometimes they use pretty modern language. And it just feels really out of place when that modern language is kind of inserted in. Like, for example, this one that just like really stuck out to me is they talked about being endgame, but endgame in terms of relationships, like the relationship is endgame, doesn't feel like something that they would actually say. Like, it feels really anachronistic given everything we know about the environment and everything else going on. Which, not that there isn't a good way, you could definitely make colloquial language in your fantasy. I just wish she had like zhuzhed it up a little bit more. Like, you could use the term endgame and use that as inspiration. What if you made it a little bit more to what you needed in that area? So instead of saying endgame, you could say something I'd say something about being like a bonded pair. Oh my gosh, I literally just finished not too long ago, and I do not think most people are gonna like the ending to this book, but I think it worked out really well. I think it's setting up for a lot of conflict in the future. This is supposed to be a 5 book series, which makes sense. This is how it ended, is going to add a lot going forward. It gives us more stuff to go into. It really makes sense based on some of the stakes that were given earlier in the book, the world building, the what was at risk in both the first and second book, and kind of really takes into play like a lot of what was learned. So I think it makes sense and it really upped the stakes. I don't think people are going to like it because it didn't end well, but I think it ends well in a way that makes sense for the rest of the series. Like it's setting everything up for the following 3 books. So that's just my 2 cents. If you have read it, just tell me what you think about it in the comments below. Good, bad, and ugly. I've seen some people already say that it was a flop, and I'm over here like having a grand old time. So I would love to know what you think. And as in terms for rating, I do feel a lot of the times ratings in books, they're very subjective and not useful in a lot of ways. So I'll kind of give it 2 ratings from a purely subjective standpoint, like how much did I personally enjoy this? And that's going to show some of my biases, but I really liked it. I would give it like a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Like this was fun. I was live, laugh, loving. It was great. I ate it up. If I were to try to rate this more objectively, it's definitely not the best fantasy I've read. The world building could use some touch ups. It could be tightened down a little bit. It is really long. Like this audiobook was 28 hours. Some of the descriptions could have been a little bit better to add more life to the world while at the same time adding world building and characterization. And there was a few things in there. I got some icks, and I do like this book, so that is a little bit of a bias there. But objectively, it's most probably like a 3 out of 5. It's definitely like ACOTAR meets Game of Thrones, but for the girls. And I liked it so much. But thank you so much for watching. I would love it if you liked, comment, subscribed, stuck around, or not. You can do whatever you want in life.